just give me robots. That's where I'm at. You know what I mean? Because some of them were bad. And I think that the thing that pisses me off, and then I want to hear your thoughts real quick too before we get to a comment and we kind of keep the conversation moving. I think what pisses me off is the same calls that Snell was getting, Hendricks wasn't getting. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm pissed. If you're going to be bad, just be consistent at least. Because then it's the same thing for both teams, right? Whereas right now, like tonight, arguably Gary Sanchez should have been out in theory, right. if you really get to it, right? And Ross gets tossed, and good for Ross. Good for you know who the only person that showed any kind of fucking fight was tonight? David Ross. David Ross, your manager. Your manager at least showed up and was fired up and going to bat for your guys. But like you said, he can't pick up the bat, and dude's 40-something years old. He can't hit fastballs anymore. As much as we'd love him to, he can't.
I mean, he probably would have put a better at bat together than some of those guys in the lineup tonight, though.
Fair. Totally fair.
I love Christopher Morel, but he's been brutal.
He has.
Like he's
come screaming back down there.
Yeah, I mean, it was like crazy hot, and then now he's been brutal. Cuzzy, I'm interested to see like the umpire report card. You know, those come out. You know, every night seems like there's another one that I'm curious. I always like to see the plus minus in terms of like how much they mattered to each team. I'm sure that it'll be a staggering at least one run, right?
Minimum.
Over to the Padres side, which it's really hard for me to go in on officials of any sport. I mean, I admit there are times where like they cost teams games. Mm-hmm. But over 162, I just think it all evens out. You're going to get some calls. You're going to not get some calls. It matters when you get them, when you don't. You know what I mean? But also, there needs to be more of an incentive that's put on to these umpires. If you're going to stick with just human error, but there's a reason that certain crews umpire the playoffs and certain crews don't get asked to do that.
Right.
So why can't there be, there is a grading system, but if you fall underneath the average or set a precedent for these major league umpires and say, hey, listen, like if you fall underneath X, Y, Z and you're not meeting standards, there should be some type of, punishment for not being a good umpire.
Let them be called up or sent down.
Yeah, I mean, it would make it more competitive, right? I mean, it would make people who are very damn good at it, want to seek out that profession. It would make the games seem fairer. I don't know. And there may be a system like that. I've never dove deep into, but I mean, there's a reason that like Angel Hernandez and, Wedner and like all these guys, like they can umpire for forever. There clearly isn't. I mean, some of these guys, I mean, shit, Country Joe West was horrible for forever and made everything about himself, and he umped forever.
Yeah.
So clearly there's not a system that's in place that, punishes for bad, performance.
Right.
I think there should be. And I think that the MLB could easily do it. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that there's some type of major league umpire player or union or whatever. I'm sure there is.
There's got to be, right.
So I'm sure that they would, have to negotiate a deal of some, stature. But, I mean, you can't have what happened tonight.
Mm-hmm. And
because, I don't know, I always think of who was the umpire that called somebody out in Pittsburgh? It was Pittsburgh Reds. It was game 163. It was decide who went to the playoffs. There's a play at home, and he was out, but he called him safe.
Do
you remember what I'm talking about? From years, it was like the 2010s.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you can't have those guys. Like I always think back to that game because it's like that game means one goes home, one goes to the playoffs.
Right.
We may get to the end of the season and go, shit, man, like we got screwed out in San Diego, for a rally in the beginning of the game. Who knows how that game turns out
Right.
because of this? It's or maybe San Diego like ends up in the playoffs because of this.
Right.
It, it's not fair. I'm like in on the robot umps, but I'm not in on the robot umps because I do like the feeling of like having a human being there doing the game, but also like I don't know. I for tonight's game and it was just like the Cubs didn't play well enough to win this game. So after the second inning, when they didn't hit and they didn't put any type of rally together, I just forgot all about Cuzzy. You know what I mean? It was like in the back of my mind at that point.
Yeah, I was gonna say even if the card comes out and it's a +1 runs for the Padres, so it's a 4-0 game instead of a 5-0 game. I mean,
Right.
it still is its own separate argument and discussion, I think. But agreed with you. They were piss poor tonight.